Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and yes, we have opened the Forbidden Gate, and the two most powerful commentators, whose names happen to be Andy, have joined together in one video. I am Lord Andy Coyne, here for Snapmares. Joining me is, of course, PWA's own commentator, Andy Rose. Hello, Andy, how are you doing?
Good to meet you, mate, and great to be here with you. It's so weird hearing Andy. I feel like I'm in trouble. Like I only hear Andrew when my parents are getting angry. Having red hair and then that last name Rose has just stuck as a nickname my entire life. But I like this Andy. I feel like a new man.
It's an Andy and an Andy. And also joining us, Mick Robson, our contributor and our play-by-play guy over in Sydney. Thank you very much, Mick. Thank you very much, Mick, for obviously all the reviews you've been putting up for the PWA Premiership. It's been fantastic to be able to follow it here in Victoria, and we really appreciate the work that you've put into it. So thank you.
Not a problem, Andy. It's great to be on with you guys, and it's going to be a little bit strange for me tonight because I'm talking of two Andys. So if I have to address you at different times, I might go with Andy for you, if you don't mind, your lordship, and I might go with Rose for Rose.
Absolutely, he's Andy number one is the only other option. So
I think one or Andy two.
With Rose.
Let's not get into the argument as to who's one and who is two. Maybe Andy one and
yours,
Andy
bro.
A. You know.
Yeah, I'm like Australia, right? I'll take it.
A bit like what they did in Futurama. But obviously, I want to talk about the PWA Premiership. We're also going to have a quick look at the final set of matches on Monday. It will be the final episode of the PWA Premiership. Of course, we'll find out who wins the Block A, we'll find out who wins the Block B, and then eventually we'll find out who's going to the grand final at PWA Black Label, back in Black Label. 12th of February at the Factory Theatre, live on Fight. Very exciting. And I think Andy Rose, Mr. Rose, I think the first question I want to ask is, from people working at PWA, when it was suddenly, obviously with the pandemic, a lot of promotions have had to stop doing shows. And that's obviously been very frustrating for a lot of promotions. I know it's been very frustrating here in Victoria. But when your team and when yourself found out that PWA were going to do this premiership and you were going to regularly create weekly content, what was the general feeling within the PWA loyalists?
Well, like you said, yes, that was a very difficult time for everyone around Australia and around the world. We all went through 2020 together, I think. And the thing about wrestling is momentum. And we were rolling on a lot of momentum and telling a lot of stories at one time. And we had a show set up for the week that everything got pulled down. And we thought on our feet and changed the name to Don't Call It a Cancel and did an empty arena show at the Pro Wrestling Academy here in New South Wales. So, you've got to, I think PWA, like any promotion, you've got to roll with the punches and kind of run at it. But I think the Premiership is something in hindsight. I don't think we had any idea what we were getting ourselves into. I think we had some time off, and obviously the athletes in professional wrestling are incredible athletes. They've got to stay at a certain level. They're hungry for it. And if you take it away from them, after a month, they're just dying to do something. So we wanted to do something for them. And also the heartbreak of losing Coliseum at the time because of the pandemic. We couldn't do that the way we wanted to do it. We felt like we wanted to create something for the wrestlers and something for the fans at the same time. And when the idea of the Premiership came around, we didn't even blink an eye. We just started running headfirst at it. And now that we're like towards the season finale, I wish we'd taken a breath and maybe planned out exactly how hard this is going to be.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't change it for the world. It's been one of the most challenging projects we've ever done.
And just following on from that, I mean, obviously putting together this series of shows, the PWA Premiership, obviously, lots of credits to the wrestlers. I'm sure they were getting quite comfy, sitting on their sofa, creating their pandemic beer belly, and then suddenly it's like, damn, I need my six-pack back real quick. But I imagine that when it comes to organizing a live streaming show and obviously making the trainee school just look it just looks so good on camera. I think now, are there any unsung heroes that you'd like to shout out to who really helped make this possible?
Yeah, I actually would. I'm actually going to bring up a list here because this is something I always wanted to get right in the commentary as well as we get close to the end of this, is that, Ben Anderson and Jordan Lees, who are the head producers and cameramen who thought up, pretty much created this idea, are the unsung heroes. When you watch the show, I think a lot of people commented on the stats and the rolling images, and we tried to give it a very sports-esque feel, very Australian sport feel with the rugby league. So we tried to lean into a lot of those tropes, and I think those differences, because of them, really helped it make it feel like a unique tournament. But we had an incredible team, like you said, at the Pro Wrestling Academy that set up that room and make it almost feel like a fighting pit and our own little home ground away from our home ground. And if you'll indulge me just for a second, Joshua Lee, Alyssa Montgomery, Tamatea Kohu, Emily Eve, Jess Gosling, Jack Nichols, Aidan Jessup, and the amazing Nick Ray were all these camera people that came together to create the show that I'm lucky enough just to be having fun over the top on.
Well, I was going to say, I'm glad you got the opportunity just to give a shout out to a few of the people. Jordan, I've seen a lot of his work in the past. He has always done fantastic work, and he's always been very lovely whenever people from Snapmares have a chat to him. Very lovely guy, and I'm sure the rest of them are lovely as well. Now, Mick, from a fan's perspective, what was your thoughts when you saw there was going to be this PWA Premiership and there was going to be this break from a traditional PWA show, and you were going to see this new format?
Okay, so my automatic first reaction was yes, weekly PWA. I mean, every single week, Monday night, I've got something to do. I've got something to break Monday itis. I've got an hour of pro wrestling. I was over the moon. It was great to see. And I didn't know what to expect from the sports side of it, as far as setting it as a premiership. And I remember when AEW first started, they talked a lot about having that sports feel as a promotion. And I feel like they've done well with it, but I don't feel like they've done as well as sort of promised. But I feel like PWA is absolutely nailing that sports-centric sports feel of pro wrestling. And like you said, Andy, tied into the G1 feel, it really feels like a major event and a major happening.
I know exactly what you mean with AEW. I love AEW. I think it's a great product. The one thing that always annoys me is when they show the points, because there just seems to be no rhyme or reason as to who is giving the number one position or the number two position. At least with this, you can see this logical point system that's resulting in something. And obviously, we're going to go into the point system a little later when we look at who could potentially win this tournament. Going back to you, Rose, one thing I'd like to know is that obviously Coliseum had to be cancelled. I was obviously watching the PWA social media channels, seeing all the various optimistic posts that, Coliseum's going to happen on this day and everyone's got their fingers crossed. And when it was cancelled, obviously, very sad. I know that's obviously a major event for your team over there. But obviously then gave you the opportunity to launch this PWA Premiership. Coliseum is obviously a tournament, and there's a lot of big names that you tend to invite. I mean, obviously, for example, you've had the likes of Orange Cassidy, for example, over there. You've obviously had some of the more popular names in PWA. Because you were sort of limited from using, say, international talent or interstate talent, did the PWA Premiership therefore create an opportunity for people who wouldn't necessarily get this sort of featured role in the tournament format?
Yes and no. I think it maybe it kind of sped up some's journeys, because I think something I'd like to do at Coliseum is obviously have half of it homegrown talent and half international talent, and you watch them collide in a tournament over 2 nights. And you could see every year there's kind of this buzz around PWA about who's that next person that's going to get invited to Coliseum now, and it's almost that chance to step up. And it would be hard to pick 4 out of this premiership, because there are so many hungry athletes right now that want to get to the top of PWA, and they're working really, really hard. So in a way, it was a blessing, because we had so many people knocking on those 4 spots to be in Coliseum, that we were able to kind of open the floodgate and say, all right, you all want to be in there, fight for it. And the premiership was a no-brainer just because of how hungry they were to get back in a ring.
Fantastic. Who do you think in the tournament has really benefited from being able to be in the PWA Premiership? Because obviously there's going to be more experienced hands in there, and there's going to be a few that aren't quite as experienced as some of the sort of the more experienced tournament players.
Yeah.
Who do you think's benefited? Who do you think the PWA Premiership has really helped raise the profile of?
It's been, for me as a fan, it's been good to see some tag team stars have some time to be solo. Like the 2 boys from Velocities, Jude London and Paris Silver. It's great to see them on their own and show you how good they are just on their own, let alone when they work together. Kai Drake is kicking the hell out of everyone, and it's fantastic. I just love seeing one half of the tag team destroy through a tournament like that. Learning experiences are interesting because there's some people that have learned from their losses. I think Kingsley's had an amazing journey through this tournament. And also the prefects, Jimmy Townsend and William Preston, are going in different directions ideologically in their lives, but I think they're both learning a lot from this tournament experience.
And Mick, what about yourself? I mean, obviously, as somebody who enjoys the PWA product, and you're obviously a big fan of the various competitors in this tournament, who do you think's really benefited? Who do you think's really shined in this tournament for you?
So I think the Velocities are a great shout, Paris and Jude. Often when you talk about tag teams, they talk about who's the Genetti. I don't think that's the case with the Velocities. I think you've got two HBKs, two Shawn Michaels. Both Jude and Paris are tremendous and can go a long way, and they're showing that in the Premiership. Also, I want to give a shout out to Kingsley, because at this point, she's got to be the sentimental favourite. Going for that approval of Uncle Jack and, you know, trying to find those points on the board. I've really gravitated towards her in this tournament, the performances she's been putting on and how impressive she's been. I'm really rooting for her now to get that one win and to overcome those odds. You know, we all love a good underdog story. It's, you know, part of the Aussie culture.
Yeah.
And we'll go into Kingsley in a bit, because she could obviously play a massive spoiler to one Sam Osborne, who's obviously very close to winning his respective block. But one thing I have very much enjoyed, as somebody who's not been able to follow PWA, and courtesy of your reviews, Mick, and courtesy of this Premiership as well, there's actually been some great sort of stories behind each of the competitors. I think the good one you mentioned is Kingsley earning Jack Bonza's approval. I've been really enjoying the videos that we've seen on PWA social media, starting with Old Man Bonza and this whole war that's sort of been going on between the new generation and sort of the old guard of PWA, and how Kingsley's got mixed up with that and how she's trying to get Uncle Jack's approval. I mean, that's really great storytelling. Obviously, she started promising she was going to win every match, and then she set her goals to at least winning one match, and it's kind of been nice to sort of see that. In addition, the Mick Moretti, Matt Wahlberg sort of feud, obviously they both want to win the respective block and then meet in the grand final. I think these are things that have really helped sort of shape the tournament. I mean, I'm sure, obviously, Rose, as someone who's obviously much more familiar with the competitors, are there any other sort of in-ring and tournament stories that you've particularly enjoyed?
Yeah, plenty, man. It's even interesting just to think back at how much we've called over this Premiership. It really has been a journey. I've loved seeing Matt Rogers step out and kind of almost steamroll through some people. I was even ignorant of forgetting that he's that capable of doing that before this Premiership, and I think it was the first or second round. He just ran through Libo Lucci, and I was like, oh my God, yeah, that's right, he's massive. And I've been loving seeing everyone get reminded of that. I'm also jealous of the positivity that Big Fudge seems to hold within himself. He can go on this amazing streak at the beginning and then lose match after match, but he still thinks he's in with a chance. And I think we could all kind of learn something from that. Some of our sports teams are just born to lose. And sometimes you just got to look at the silver lining. And I think that man just thinks positively about it. Like you said, those two generations as well, the old guard and the new guard. And, you know, time is inevitable and those torches need to be handed over. But I think the old guard and PWA have a very valid argument as to why that's not right now. And, you know, that is happening. And that war between Moretti and Wahlberg is so interesting because it's an extension of us as commentary partners as well. Chris, for some reason, really likes Matty Wahlberg. And I'm a Moretti guy. So we constantly disagree about all of this stuff, which I think makes for interesting television.
I was going to say, historically, I've worked for other promotions. There's always that inevitable old school, new school battle that's going on. The new generation's coming in. When does the new school overtake? When does the young lion sort of kill the old lion and take the pride?
Yeah, the master.
Absolutely, it's going to happen. Mick, sort of same question to you. As someone who's been watching it, has there been any particular stories that you've enjoyed? Is there anything that's sort of jumped out at you as well?
So obviously the Moretti versus Wahlberg story is something that's been going on for a long time, even pre-pandemic. So to see it continue through the Premiership's been really something that's been great to watch, because not only do you have the generations clashing, you've got the different mentalities clashing. Of course, you've got Moretti, who's always acting unhinged, but in beneath all the craziness, he's got a plan. And then you've got Wahlberg, who's so sure of himself. He's a big MMA guy. Wahlberg reminds me a lot of Conor McGregor. He's very controversial and divisive, but he's got a talent, and that pisses you off even more because he's so good, but he's so overbearing and overconfident that it makes you want to see him get punched in the mouth. So maybe that'll happen at the hands of Moretti, maybe that'll happen at the hands of Bonza. At the same time, Bonza's story is really interesting because he went away for a while and he's come back. He tried to change his ways. He tried to be the nicer guy. And when that didn't work, you see that old Bonza starting to creep in. And that's really intriguing. The prefects as well, seeing the prefects, the different paths they're taking. And also Jimmy Townsend in particular, out of the two, Jimmy Townsend really interests me, his story, because he's trying to break out of that schoolboy mentality, but he still finds himself falling into those old traps. And along the way, he seems to have these romantic interests too, which adds a different flavor to things. You know, he's trying to focus on his job, but I don't know, it seems like he's got a bit of a crush on Cherry Stevens. It seems like he's got a bit of a crush on Jessica Troy. So that is new wrinkles to the storytelling that, you know, really interests me and makes it interesting to follow. Because it's not just all action, it's not all serious sport. You've got these different elements coming into it as well.
Yeah, I think that's what I've really enjoyed about following the PWA Premiership. I mean, I like the G1, but obviously, because I sort of grew up on WWE as well, there's always going to be that little part of me that likes that slightly American flavor of storytelling. And I think PWA has done a really good job of hitting that balance. It's not just straight matches. There is storyline, there's context, there's things going on in the background as well.
Exactly.
Sorry, Rose, I think I just interrupted you inadvertently then.
No, beautifully said. What an answer. He made my answer sound so basic. That was wonderful, poetic.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry, you were just complimenting me and I knocked the cable out of my earpiece. That was terribly timed. But look,
I was complimenting Robbo's beautiful poetic answer that made mine sound like nothing.